What's up? Welcome to Dave's Watch channel. How you guys doing? And today for this video I have before you another unboxing of a Rolex. And for those of you who have been following, I traded the 5513 Submariner, the vintage Rolex. Oh, that was a beautiful Rolex. That was my first ever vintage sub. But you know, unfortunately, vintage Rolexes are just not, they're not suitable for my lifestyle, unfortunately, right? So anyway, before that, wristwatch check, Rolex Explorer, reference 214270. Love this watch. Okay. All right, so what did I trade? My 55134. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's Rolex GMT Master 2, Pepsi dial. This one is a Z serial. Comes with the papers. Really hard to find them with the papers these days. But this one has an interesting story, actually. Well, I mean, so the legend goes. I shouldn't say it's a legend. But this one was purchased in London Heathrow, November 2006. And the information has been blacked out. Because apparently it was sold to a Canadian military, high-ranking military officer, and he was based in the Middle East. And so they didn't want, I guess, his name and address to be circulating in the watch collecting community. And so it was scribbled over and blacked out. He was based in the Middle East, and therefore, that's how the fading occurred due to the sun exposure. You know, the Pepsi bezel just faded. So it's a nice little story, right? And these are the things that you know, I appreciate the previous owner passing down to me, because you know, watches. It's really neat when they are able to tell a tale, tell a story. Whether you believe it or not, I don't know, but you know, do you believe in fairy tales? This one's believable, right? It really is believable. You know, 2006 was a very tumultuous year. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East, and to have this owned by a military personnel, I think it adds a little bit of charm. Obviously, you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Could be, you know, could be fabricated. Who knows, right? But whatever. It's a great watch, right? I love the faded bezel. I have a, you know, love-hate relationship with the GMT Master 2. Well, I shouldn't say I hate it, but you know, back then when I started collecting, I purchased my first ever Rolex GMT Master 2 from a guy in Toronto, and my wife at the time collected it from him, and it was, I didn't pay a lot for it. I believe I paid less than 5,000 Canadian. I think it was like 4,800. It was a complete set, box papers. It didn't have the solid end link, but it was in really good shape, and I got it for 4,800, I remember. Or was it 4,600? But anyway, I stupidly sold it for $5,000 Canadian at the time. Fast forward to today, it has tripled since then, and that must have been around 2012, 2013. So it's only been about 5-6 years ago, and this watch here has tripled. My goodness. And you know, I have been kicking myself ever since. Picked up, I guess this would be my 4th GMT Master 2. Bought and sold a lot of them. Great watch, right? Really beautiful watch, you know? Got a nice little color. This one's the Pepsi bezel. Obviously, they come in Coke and all black bezel inserts. My favorite was always the Pepsi. You know, just nice little color. However, if the red was completely filled, you know, the bright red, it is a bit flashy. It is a bit, you know, it can be a bit much, right? I really love the faded insert. I also had a Coke bezel GMT Master 2. It also had a had a fade. However, it wasn't as even as this one. It was a little bit patchy, a little bit blotchy. This one has got a really nice pink. It's almost pinkish, pinkish hue to it, which I really like. And of course, solid endings, no holes case, Z serial, 2006. This is a solid watch. It's a great piece. I really like it, and I have it set to time in Korea. My wife is in Korea right now, so for those of you who wonder how the GMT works, so I set it. This is the time in London right now, GMT. So it is 8 p.m. in London, right? So these things line up. It's London time. And Seoul, Korea is +9. So I just add 9 hours. That's 8. I have this 9-hour marker lined up with the 12 o'clock. And so it's about 5 a.m. over there. 5:05 in the morning. So I wouldn't call her right now. But yeah, that's how you use it, right? Obviously the GMT Master 2 was a pilot's watch used by Pan Am. Super cool watch, super cool piece. These things are expensive. They are a lot of money. They are trading for, people are selling them, not asking, selling them for up to 15,500 Canadian dollars. I'm quite confident if I sold this, I could probably get 15,000 Canadian. Which is a lot of money, right? It's at $15,000, you could definitely get the ceramic GMT, the black one, the LN. You could definitely get a ceramic sub. So this has surpassed some of the ceramic models in price. And will it continue to go up? I don't know, right? They obviously don't make this one anymore. And it is interesting. Yesterday, I picked this up yesterday, and after that, I went to a watch club, a watch meeting here in Vancouver. It was really, really intimate setting. I think about 10 people, 10 or 15 people showed up. And I had this along, and yeah, people wanted to inspect it, take a look at it. Some of them had never seen this model. I mean, they had never seen this model in person. And interestingly enough, there were some younger audiences, and they considered this as vintage. They considered the 16710 as a vintage Rolex. And I don't know how I feel about that, because, does that mean that I'm catching on in age? Does it mean I'm from a bygone era? I'm from a different era, or time's passing me by? When I started collecting, in 2012, no, these were modern Rolexes, right? Sapphire crystal, pre-ceramic models. In my mind, this is not a vintage Rolex. This is a modern Rolex, pre-ceramic, right? These are still modern Rolexes. But it was very interesting to see expressions of people. Oh wow, saying, oh wow, I've never ever seen a vintage GMT before, and this is wow, this is quite something, because I guess the younger generation, or the current generation, their perspective of a GMT Master 2 would be the ceramic ones. However, for me, for my generation, this represents my generation of GMT Master 2. And obviously there were older gentlemen, guys in their 60s. And for them, their generation of Rolexes are very different from what they are today, and from my era, the 90s and 2000s. And it was interesting, right? That's the beautiful thing about watches, is that they are able to bring together, they're able to cross generations of people. And that's very hard to do, right? Because very often there's a generational gap, let's say between my father and myself, there's a pretty big gap, right? His interests and my interests, and his outlook and his and my outlook and our perspectives are very different. However, Rolexes seem to bring generations together. Everybody can appreciate each other's generation of watches. However, I think what a lot of the enthusiasts have concluded, currently concluded, the older ones, is that there's a lot of hype with the new ceramic Rolexes, and that they don't fit as well. I mean, let's face it. Okay, I'm of Chinese descent. Chinese people love Rolexes. All right, it's a stereotype, but we just love Rolexes, and you know, we don't have very big wrists, right? Our stature is a lot smaller than that of our Caucasian counterparts or other ethnicities, and our wrists, you know, it's not very big. Like my wrist is about 6¼ inches. I'm 5'11", and I'm considered as a big Asian guy, a big Chinese guy, right? My frame is pretty big, and I find the ceramic Rolexes with a super case to be it's just a little bit too big for my wrist. It's a little too blocky, a little too angular. They are beautiful to look at, but they just don't fit the Asian wrist very well. And I think that will be a problem in a couple years, you know, once the tastes of a lot of Chinese people have kind of matured a little bit. Let's not forget, you know, that Chinese money has only just really occurred over the last decade, right? A lot of new wealth in China, and they want they want the latest and greatest, the newest. But once they have, once their tastes have matured, and they start to look towards other generations of Rolexes, I am confident that they will come back to this generation, or right, a true vintage Rolexes, as in with the plexiglass and the matte dial with tritium markers, like my well, not like my 5513, but the older ones. And I think that market will still be strong and will always have support, right? I feel. I mean, don't get me wrong, these things are still very, very expensive. There's definitely a lot of hype over these things, and you never know, right? You never know. It was just good to talk with other Rolex collectors, especially from, you know, from those who have been collecting for decades. And they say, you know, they had never seen anything like this, right? I was talking to a collector. He had Paul Newman Daytonas. He had all the vintage Rolex models. It just came in and out of his collection, and he didn't really. I mean, back then there was no internet, there was no information, so you know, he didn't really hang on to those watches. He just bought them and sold them. Just bought and sold, you know, and of course we have hindsight right now. He's kind of kicking himself for letting go some really, really precious Rolexes, like the Paul Newman Daytona. He had some really rare Sea Dwellers with those patent pending case backs. A lot of 5513s with variations of crown guards. A lot of 1675 GMTs with special inserts, and you know, he said he didn't know what they would be. He didn't know what they were really worth. He just bought them, sold them, and now it's kind of gone crazy. So anyway, I should do a wristwatch. Wristwatch check or wrist shot. Looks great. All right. 78790A bracelet, GMT Master 2. And well, I guess to finish off this video, I've made another deal for this Rolex Explorer, and I love this watch. It was a great watch. However, I made a deal with someone else, and this will be gone if all things work out. Maybe in a couple days, I'll have another video, another unboxing video, and I'll share that with you. All right. So in the meantime, I'm gonna enjoy wearing this for the next couple days. And thanks for watching. If you made it out, well, 15 minutes. I really rambled on. Okay. Thanks for watching. I'm out. Bye.